the MCAT Cars Podcast, session number 10. The Cars section of the MCAT gives thousands of pre-meds nightmares every night. Whether you're an ESL student, lack confidence while reading, or are a slow reader like me, Jack Westin and the medical school headquarters are here to help you score higher in every section so you can be confident you are ready to get the MCAT score of your dreams. Welcome back to another MCAT Cars podcast. Welcome back if this is not your first time here. Welcome if this is your first time here. I'm excited to have you here. We are excited to have you here. I am joined by Jack Westin, founder of jackwestin.com, the MCAT Cars tutor. In each of these episodes, we break down different articles and help you really understand how to break down what is being said, how to come to a place where you start having a little bit of anxiety because you had no idea what you just read, and overcoming that without stopping and rereading and rereading and rereading. Because I don't know about you, but that's what I do when I read and I don't understand. But on the MCAT, you don't have time to do that. So in these episodes, we are helping you build your confidence to move on, to read a sentence that you don't necessarily understand and take away one key thing and move on, move forward, because you don't have time to go back. So let's go ahead and dive into some more strategy with our article today with Jack Westin. All right, Jack Westin, back with some more MCAT Cars podcasts. Are you having fun with this?
You know, it's been a really good learning experience for me, and like how to explain things. I am. Yeah, it's awesome. How are you feeling?
Are you saying that I'm that bad that you have to relearn how to teach?
No, I normally don't break down sentence by sentence, right?
Okay.
The course touches on how to find those big ideas very quickly, right? But this breakdown, I think, is very helpful for students who just want to understand or comprehend things. And again, it comes back to why we even started this, right? Mm-hmm. It's something that I don't think a lot of students realize how important it is, right, to understand what you're reading. And yeah, you might not need to understand every sentence that we talk about, but it gives you more confidence. It helps you read faster. It's just overall a good skill to have. So is it something that you should be able to do before you take the MCAT? To a degree, absolutely, right? Not at the level that we go over, but it's definitely helpful. It's definitely very helpful. And yeah, it's new to me, so I'm enjoying it.
I wonder, a lot of people say that, or a lot of students say that the cars section specifically is probably the hardest section to improve upon. And I wonder if that's really why. Because if you're in Chem Phys, you're biochem, you can learn the content to better answer the questions. But for cars, it's harder to learn how to do what we're teaching now in these podcast episodes, to really break down what it is you're actually reading. Most students don't get to that nuanced level of learning. Exactly.
Yeah. So cars, I like to say, is a section that teaches you how to learn in a quick manner. So it teaches you, it prepares you for new ideas, new things that you've never seen before. In chemistry, physics, you've seen those concepts over and over again. That the fact that it's familiar to you gives you more confidence when you do those questions on test day, right? But with cars, you've never seen this passage we've gone over, right? Or we're going to go over. And you're required to understand it immediately as soon as you read it, right? And you don't have that luxury on test day to sit there and look at it forever and ever and ever. You have to identify the key points immediately. And I don't know if you agree with this, but I think that's what medicine is all about, right? Being able to think on your feet, being able to look at something and to deduce or come up with ways to solve the problem, right? So in a way, this is good preparation for the kind of studying and the kind of stuff you're going to be looking at throughout your medical journey.
Yeah.
right? But it's funny because none of it is science based, which is sad, but that's the reality we live in.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Passage that we're going over today. Anything that we should be aware of before we jump into it?
No, it's gonna be a pretty straightforward passage. I think a lot of students will enjoy this one. Not so difficult to read. We'll bring up some interesting points. Should be a standard read. Shouldn't be so bad.
Okay. In 1931, Pearl S. Buck published the novel The Good Earth. So pretty straightforward. This is the kind of sentence that I like.
Okay, I'm going to note that.
So we have a name, Pearl S. Buck. We have a novel, The Good Earth, and a year 1931 that it was published. All right. Buck was born in the United States but raised in China, the daughter of fervent missionaries from West Virginia. Okay, so we know that Pearl is from the U.S. but raised in China, the daughter of missionaries. So just painting the picture of who this author is. When she was young, though, she grew disenchanted with her family's calling, which presumed a condescending distance from the heathen masses. So we have the previous sentence paints her parents as fervent missionaries, and this sentence is saying that she grew disenchanted with that calling to be a missionary. The last part of the sentence, which presumed a condescending distance from the heathen masses, I don't know what that means, but all I'm taking away from the sentence is that Pearl grew apart from her parents being missionaries.
That's it. That's all you need to know. Now, that last part is basically saying that her parents had this condescending attitude towards people who were not her religion, right?
Yes.
So it presumed a condescending distance from the heathen masses, like the evil or bad or whatever masses. Okay. Right? Which is what, it's kind of what like the picture that is painted in her head by her family.
Yeah. Okay. That was the part that, again, the way that I read too fast. The witch, her family's calling presumed a condescending distance. So that part I was missing, that connection of what presumed a condescending distance. Oh, the family's calling. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, see, that's the thing, though. Was that necessary to get a 132? No, it wasn't necessary. That's where the perfectionist in most students messes them up, because they think, oh, I got to understand everything I read. You don't. Not if you got that bigger picture, right? And you're good. You're fine. All right.
Instead, she sympathized with China's everyday strivers. So again, they're showing the Pearl, this author, sympathizing with China's population, who her parents think are heathens. The Good Earth was about a Chinese farmer named Wang Lung, whose thrifty ways and by his bootstraps determination protects his family during a time of great upheavals, from drought and famine to political revolution. And so now the author is just telling us what The Good Earth is about this Chinese farmer. Buck's novel arrived at a moment between the Great Wars when Americans had become interested in China's once great civilization. So the book being published between the Great Wars, so World War I, World War II, when we were interested in that. Americans were interested in it, in China. The Good Earth was an immediate success, making Buck one of America's foremost experts on all things Chinese, and paving the way for an entire industry of stories about the distant and seemingly exotic land. So the book was popular, and there was a whole industry around writing about the Chinese, or about China. Her influence spread throughout magazines, newspapers, Hollywood, the political sphere. And so everybody kind of caught on to this, this interest in China. She won a Pulitzer Prize, and in 1938 became the first American woman to earn the Nobel Prize in Literature. So her book was well received and praised and won awards. Writers who hoped to be involved in the Asia story sought her approval. So others thought she was the Messiah, apparently, and wanted her approval in their writings as well. she was monolithic. Now, monolithic, I have no idea what that means, so I'm just going to ignore that sentence.
Sounds good. You already know, right? She's a Messiah, right? That's the context that you know it in. So monolithic probably means she's the one and only, or like not. I'm not going to say monotheistic. That has nothing to do with it, but more like a rock, right? Like a bed, like some kind of major rock, right? Okay.
Oh yeah, mono. I know lith is stone, and so mono one. There you go.
Yeah, like this main rock.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That's kind of what it means. Okay.
All right. So the paragraph is basically just telling us about this author and how she was raised, and her book, and how well received it was, and how everybody loved her.
That's it. This should be a very quick paragraph read for most students, right? Students will look at this paragraph and go, "Wow, this is so long," right? But it's an easy read. So yeah, it's long, but I'm not concerned about the length. I'm concerned about the density. Yeah. The density is what makes a passage challenging, not the length, right? So if you ever hear a student or hear a fellow, student of yours or peer say, "Oh, the real test is so much longer. Such a longer test now. I've heard it's 7-8 paragraphs."
Yeah, a lot of people say that. Yeah.
It's not. It's really not. If it is longer, it's probably easier to read, right? Okay. And the harder passages are usually shorter. Okay.
Interesting. It's a good look at it. Good take. All right, paragraph 2. In the early 2000s, when I was a graduate student casting about for a research project, I became fascinated with Buck's outsized influence. So the author is talking about him or herself, talking about being a graduate student looking for a research project and becoming fascinated with Buck. Decades after her successful run of 1930s and 40s bestsellers, surveys showed that many Americans still relied largely on Buck's fiction for their understanding of China. So the author is saying that a lot of people are still using the books to learn about China, to understand China, even long after they came out. But I wanted more friction to this story. Interesting, more friction to the story. So again, the last sentence of these paragraphs is confusing me, and so I just ignore it. But the paragraph is just basically saying that a lot of people still use Buck's fiction to understand China.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, you definitely caught on to that friction sentence, right? What is friction usually? Is that a good thing? Do you want friction or do you not?
Bad. Friction's usually bad.
Right. So maybe she's trying to look for the bad part of this story, right? She's like, look for something that's like, so far, everyone's like bowing down to her, right? Bowing down to
Buck.
Buck, yeah. Right? So in this case, maybe she's looking for more stuff, more, maybe something that's bad about her.
Trying to dig up some dirt.
Exactly. Yeah.
On the way home from the library, I would often stop at a local barbershop to buy the latest mixtapes from New York City crews like the Diplomats and G Unit, DJs like Woo Kid, Clue, and K Slay. Okay, so now we're talking in one paragraph about Buck in China to walking home from the library and buying mixtapes from DJs and rappers, apparently.
G Unit? All right, let's go.
Okay. It seemed like every few weeks, new artists would emerge from nowhere by dissing whoever was just in front of them. Okay. So this sentence is really interesting. It seemed like new artists would emerge by dissing whoever was just in front of them. But the previous paragraph was saying, I wanted more friction to the story. So it sounds like the author wants to diss who was in front of him or her by finding this friction. That's interesting.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like a really random, like,
completely
at first
random.
take, you may be thinking, wait, am I reading the same article?
Yeah. Did they copy and paste from the wrong article?
Yeah. Or did we? Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And that throws off a lot of people. But you can't lose track of what was going on before. We were talking about Buck and how she's amazing, right? So somehow they're going to connect this stuff to Buck. Yeah. We got to be careful for that. All right, let's go ahead.
Beefing with someone slightly more famous was how you came to understand the surface of the playing board. Who was a king and who was a pawn? So this may confuse, I think, some people, the word beefing and what that actually means in our culture. but basically saying having issues with someone who's a little bit more famous with you is how you learn, basically, how to come up.
So yeah, beefing is tough to understand unless you are aware of American culture, right? Right, but because something that a lot of it's not used often, right? It's not a word that we use in our daily vocabulary, or at least most people don't use, hopefully. But it does say right before it, by dissing whoever was just in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we now know dissing is hopefully everyone knows that is what? Is insulting.
Yeah.
Right? So beefing may relate to insulting or dissing in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So dissing or insulting someone slightly more famous, etc. Okay? And now it says something interesting. I really like this. Who was a king and who was a pawn, right? Which is referencing chess,
mm-hmm.
right? You may not play chess, but obviously a king is the most important piece on the chessboard, right? You have to protect that, and it's really the whole point of the game.
Yep.
And a pawn is one of the soldiers that kind of die early on in the game. so exactly. So it's just trying to show us, like, with this dissing or beefing, you can see who's strong and who's not strong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hip-hop has always assumed a measure of antagonism, a mythology built on street corner battles between rappers, dancers, and DJs. So the author's just painting this picture of hip-hop and kind of where it came from. But occasionally, these momentary rifts would take on lives of their own, and there has been no sturdier engine of change than full-fledged beefs. So we're back to this beefs word. I was like, oh, okay, what does this mean again? So again, just these battles between rappers, dancers, and DJs taking on the life of their own. In the mid-1980s, the Bronx rapper KRS-One went after MC Shane for the simple reason that Shane had dared to record a song touting his neighborhood in Queens. So he's just giving an example here of one rapper going after another. One rapper having a beef. Years later, I was talking to a well-known rapper from around Shane's way who said that KRS's ferocity had crushed the entire borough's esteem. So this beef that went on between the two rappers had kind of had an unintended consequence of crushing the Queens, the borough's esteem.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, still wondering where this is going. Beef is what propelled artists like KRS and later Jay-Z and 50 Cent to new artistic heights. Wow. Okay.
What does that mean? What is that saying? I think that's important.
Yeah, so the author is saying that it was these conflicts, these beefs that helped certain artists, naming a couple, Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and KRS, to more fame, new artistic heights. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, that's exactly it. So beefs seem to be something that helps artists, right? In some way, makes them get better, become better artists in some way. Mm-hmm. New artistic heights. So they're doing great things, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Let's see if we get back to Buck again. Beef is how you won and another lost. It's how you understood in the first place that cultural supremacy could be a zero-sum contest. So beefs, how you won, how you lost, understanding cultural supremacy. So understanding who's better, it could be a zero-sum contest. So this could be, I think, a challenging sentence because you have cultural supremacy. What does that mean? Zero-sum contest. What does that mean? So I think this might be a hard sentence for some people, but I think it's basically saying that that through these beefs is how you became stronger, how you won, how you beat someone else, and that it is a zero-sum game. Two people can't win. One person's winning, one person's losing.
The first 7 words, right before the hyphen or dash or whatever you want to call that, explain the rest.
Yeah.
So beef is how you won and another lost. That's it. So dissing is whether a winning or losing kind of thing. And zero sum is another way of saying that. Zero as in you didn't win anything, some meaning like you won, right? You got something out of it.
Mhm.
So the rest isn't that important compared to the first half.
Okay. It's how lesser lights showed everyone they were even worth listening to. So this one, again, is confusing a little bit. How lesser lights? What are... Like the author is, I guess, showing us lesser lights to be new people?
Someone who's new or maybe less
famous?
Less famous, not as good, right? Are perceived as good, right? So lesser lights is referring to people who may not be the most popular or the most well regarded.
Yeah, and they were using beefs to show that they were worth listening to.
Right.
And winning at those beefs.
Correct.
I'm assuming. My obsession with rappers dissing one another resulted in a strange detour in my scholarship.
You think?
Yeah, a strange detour in this article as well.
Yeah.
So interesting. So, obsession with rappers, obsessing with this dissing and beefs. The author is saying that it resulted in a detour from her research project, apparently her scholarship.
Okay.
And a lot of people will read scholarship as like, oh, like money from schools to go to school, but this is just scholarship as in just schooling, period.
Exactly. Just studying, right?
Yep.
Or exactly. That word could confuse a lot of students, so I'm glad you pointed that out.
I became fixated on the possibilities of beef, rivalry, and jealousy, not just as the story of the music I loved, but as creative spurs. So the author is talking about why he or she loved the beefs and the rivalry and jealousy, and potentially seeing it as a way to spur creativity.
Excellent.
Pettiness and imagined slights could be generative. Generative. So this could be a confusing one as well. So generative, I'm assuming the author is saying generative to creativity.
Yeah, generating,
Yeah.
right? You generate creativity, so it's probably along the same lines as creative spurs.
Okay. And it made me wonder, did Buck have any rivals? Where were the writers who loathed her enough to try to do better? All right, we finally got back to Buck. So we didn't miscopy and paste this one. So the author is wondering, like, Buck was praised so much. Where are these writers that didn't like her? There had to be somebody out there who was trying to do better.
Right.
That's the friction that she was referring to.
Right, exactly. We did all that work to come back to that idea. Why didn't she just say it?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh.
No, but you know what? That's what they do. They want to explain. They wanted you to feel like a rapper, right? Going through that time, right, where you're battling each other, dissing each other, beefing each other to create that creativity. And now I think the reader is more convinced that beefing may actually result in creativity.
All right. When we are young, we are taught that great art comes from lofty, ambitious places. The pursuit of truth, beauty, the sublime. So the previous paragraph, the author is saying, hey, maybe this creativity comes from this conflict with somebody else. And now in this paragraph, the author is saying, when we're young, we're taught that it comes from truth and beauty and the sublime. I think that's what they're saying here.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it seems to be different from what the author was originally stating, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe this is how most people think.
Yep.
Right? That it comes from like things that are opposite of conflict, or at least not related to conflict.
Mm-hmm. Artists struggle with themselves on behalf of the rest of us in the hope that they might produce something that reflects back a small part of our collective soul, a part that might awe or reshape us. Oh. So the author's talking about this struggle that artists have, and that they're doing it for us, hoping that that they can create something, I'm assuming.
Right. That's it. So they're just struggling within themselves to create something good.
Yeah. Okay. All of this proceeds from long-held beliefs involving muses and divine inspiration, elevating art to some rarefied zone of human exchange. Ooh. I have no idea. So I think what they're saying, the last part, elevating art to some rarefied zone of human exchange, the author is saying that I think some people are saying that to be artistic, it's this rarefied zone. It's something divine inspiration, as they say, and not necessarily the conflict that the author was talking about previously.
Right. Seems very noble, right?
Yeah.
Seems like something that is like a higher calling in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
And not just you're mad because the other artist is dissing your neighborhood or talking about your neighborhood.
Exactly. Yeah.
A good book or a painting, we are told, can improve our lives. So just a general statement. I don't think there's really much there other than that it can improve our lives. But rap music taught me a different story about inspirations and motives. So going back to rap and how it's influenced the author. When someone undeserving is praised too loudly, this too abets creativity. So the word abets, I'm not sure what that means. I'm assuming creates is what it means. It creates creativity, sparks creativity.
Yeah.
And so the author is going back to the rap paragraphs and saying, it's not necessarily only divine inspiration and artist struggles, but it's also jealousy, maybe, when someone undeserving is praised too loudly. So jealousy spurring this creativity.
It's kind of it's referencing beef, right? If you're undeserving of the praise, right? Like maybe that should lead to some kind of beef, which leads to some creativity, right? So it's kind of going back to the same idea we've been on this whole time.
Yeah.
Right. So it does paint the picture as to how most people perceive creativity. Most people think it's something that just not effortlessly, but something that just comes out within us, right? But maybe it's actually something that involves conflict with other people, not necessarily something that is a conflict within yourself, but conflict with other outside elements, right? So great. So what do you think is the big picture of this article? What should you take away from this?
Oh man, that I think the big takeaway is is that to be creative, there are many sources of creativity, but a lot of it is related to conflict. I think
That's it.
Yeah.
Beefing or dissing or conflict leads to creativity, right? And now you may be thinking, well, isn't Buck part of the main idea? Right?
Yeah, that was why I paused so long. I'm like, how does Buck work into this? I'm like, I don't think she does.
No, she doesn't. It's that point. She only brought up Buck to prove her point, right? So Buck is not the central part of this thesis, right? It's not that important relative to the bigger argument of creativity, of how we can bring in creativity, right? Now the author does question how the heck does Buck become so creative when there's no conflict? I don't see any conflict, right? I know conflict should come from creativity. Creativity should come from conflict. But at the end of the day, the bigger argument, the point that the author tries to make is that conflict creates creativity.
And I would tell you, Jack, that the conflict for Buck was being disenchanted with her family's calling. That was her conflict.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a great point.
It's because I read and understood it.
Yeah, you never know, because we only take out the first 5 paragraphs, but they could continue on and talk about Buck, and who knows, right? Okay, good. That was a very standard read. It shows you how they can go through something, they can talk about something, and then totally change direction, right? And then bring it all together at the end, which is something that most passages do. So it's very standard. Reason why I think most students will enjoy this is because it's talking about something relevant to their lives, right? Jay-Z, 50 Cent, dissing, beef,
Yeah.
Drake, who knows? I don't know if Drake is having beef with anyone right now, but
Yeah.
probably, right? And you just learn something new, right? You probably never thought of this, but maybe Drake or whoever today is beefing each other is because it creates creativity. It's actually helping them, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that you can take away from this article, that you may not have ever thought of or may have never read before.
All I'm picturing is Eminem and 8 Mile having a rap battle and kind of getting his launch from that, crushing it.
Yeah, when it said lesser known or whatever, lesser lights, I was thinking of Eminem there. Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. Another great article, an interesting one about Pearl and her Good Earth novel, and apparently rapping as well. If you're looking for some more personalized attention with your MCAT CARS strategy, with your MCAT CARS prep, go check out medicalschoolhq.net/Jack Westin and learn about his MCAT CARS strategy course. By going to that link, it automatically activates a $100 coupon that you can use towards the MCAT CARS strategy course, where you are going to get over 70 hours of instruction to learn to master the critical thinking skills necessary to get the CARS score of your dreams. You'll get personalized attention, you'll gain confidence with clear, proven methods from Jack Westin, the expert in the CARS section. Go to medicalschoolhq.net/Jack Westin to activate that $100 off coupon, or text the word CARS coupon to 44222 and we'll send you that link as well. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the MCAT CARS podcast. When you use the links provided in this podcast, you're helping to support MedEd Media and the podcasts that we produce. Not only do you get a discount, but we earn a small commission as well. Thank you for your support.